Right, okay, so yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this week's webinar from Martin Audio. This week we are going to be looking at our CDD series of loudspeakers. That involves, of course, our installation loudspeakers and our active premium powers CDD live range. Firstly, I'll just introduce myself. My name's Simon Purse. I'm a product support engineer for Martin Audio. So I'm involved in system design work, any kind of technical support on the ground and obviously from the office, system commissioning, and of course, training and the creation of all our training content as well. I'm joined today, or will be joined shortly, by my colleague Ben Tucker. He'll be in the background answering any questions if anybody has them. I'm not sure if he's having some technical issues, but if he cannot join us, then I will try and answer all the questions at the end, rather than kind of stopping and starting in between if anybody has any. So we're going to have a little bit of an introduction into what CDD technology actually is, then have a brief look at all of the models in the range, a little bit of the hardware, some system configurations, some amplification, DSP, some software that we've got available for modeling and control. And then we'll just finish off with just a couple application examples of CDD in situ. So CDD, these are very kind of striking boxes. These are very different to most kind of loudspeaker cabinets. They're asymmetrical and curved in almost every axis, and that's to stop any kind of standing waves from occurring inside the box. Equally, they are made from a kind of plastic wooden composite material, which allows for very little resonance in the box. It gives us a very clear, direct sound. And of course, one of the most striking things is this coaxial differential dispersion driver that you can see there, where we have the HF unit mounted on top of the LF unit, giving us our coaxial loudspeaker. And then, of course, you can see the differential dispersion kind of waveguide there, which is actually mounted onto the LF, giving us our kind of our horn throat is all orientated from one acoustic center. And CDD has gone into pretty much everything you can think of, be that modern churches, traditional churches, restaurants, hotels, gymnasiums, auditoriums, bars, literally everywhere. There is a loudspeaker in this range for every kind of system deployment. So the best of both worlds. CDD combines the kind of the benefits of a point source system with the consistent coverage of differential dispersion. So there are several reasons why you might want to use a coax over a biaxial loudspeaker. The first of which is sort of arrival times or difference in phase position between the HF and the LF units. So if we look at this as a conventional loudspeaker on the left here with an XY dispersion, but more importantly, there is a crossover point between the LF and the HF, and those originate, or the frequencies in that crossover band originate from both the LF and the HF at the same time. And because they originate from two different sources in this crossover band, depending on your location in the venue relative to these loudspeakers, there's going to be a difference in path length or a difference in arrival time to your ears. And of course, this difference in time or path length is going to allow these wavefronts to arrive at a different position in phase, and therefore they're going to interact or distort each other, interfere with each other. This is going to happen to a varying degree relative to where we are compared to the loudspeaker. When we are directly on axis, it's not a problem, but when we move around the speaker, we're going to have a varying issue right in the middle of that crossover bandwidth. And as you can see on the left in the red there, we've got a bit of a dip, which we call the crossover dip, which is standard across all biaxial loudspeakers. But on the right hand side with our coaxial system, you can see it doesn't matter where we stand, because the acoustic center for both the HF and the LF originate from the same location, we are not getting interference, and therefore we have an even frequency response all the way around the room. So expressing that in a slightly different way, in a balloon graph here, this is a traditional two-way loudspeaker shown at the crossover region, or the kind of crossover frequency rather. And here we have a CDD loudspeaker's response. And as you can see, it doesn't matter where we stand, we're not going to be in a kind of dip because there is no difference in phase in the arrival times from both the HF and the LF units. Now, traditionally, coaxial loudspeakers tend to beam a little bit in the HF, and that gives them a narrowing response as we move up in the frequency band. But with our differential dispersion, we've managed to overcome this to quite a great extent, which really kind of pulls out and extends the horizontal dispersion right up into the top of the frequency band, and it keeps going all the way through your kind of vocal range and out the other end into the high frequency. So this means no matter where you're standing, you're going to get really good intelligibility, not only because of the response to the loudspeaker, but also because of the coaxial nature. It's going to maintain consistent in its clarity, no matter where you're standing in this relative to this loudspeaker. So this CDD technology really does sort of improve greatly on your response relative to where you're standing to the speaker anywhere in the room. And here, here's the sort of the device that sort of achieves that overcoming of the HF beaming. So it's this static waveguide that extends a high frequency dispersion right up into kind of the top of the audible range. And as you can see, it also offers an asymmetrical dispersion pattern. This asymmetrical dispersion pattern makes it in the smaller models about 110 degrees in the near field, narrowing to about 90 degrees as we move up the vertical. So if you imagine if you're stood below the loudspeaker, if it's above head height and you're stood to the extreme left or right, you're still going to get coverage. But as you move further away from the loudspeaker, it's actually managing to project that HF further, giving us a much more kind of rectangular dispersion pattern if we look at it as it hits a kind of audience area. So here we have a conventional just standard XY loudspeaker, and here we have a CDD dispersion pattern. Now, in order to achieve the response in the near field with a comparative XY loudspeaker, you would need maybe an Adorn A55, for example, which also has 110 degrees in the near field. But because we have this narrowing of the horizontal dispersion as we move up the vertical axis of the loudspeaker, this gives us a kind of a little bit more energy to throw and a more rectangular dispersion into the audience. And this means that we get the benefits of a narrower horizontal dispersion in the far field, but we keep the benefits of the wider dispersion in the near field. And this technology, very rightly so, has won a huge amount of awards, and you know, it's probably the best-selling speaker range that Martin Audio has come up with in terms of a point source system. I wanted to grow on this technology and kind of push this further, get it into more and more applications, and this was sort of the birth of CDD Live. So CDD Live combines exactly the same drive units, but with state-of-the-art Class D amplification and onboard DSP, and of course this includes Dante networking. There's remote networking for our Vuenet control software. Presets are on board, and it's completely customizable configurations to recall from Vuenet or from the back panel. So that's an introduction to CDD Live or CDD technology. So we'll just have a quick walkthrough of all the loudspeakers in the range. So we start very, very small with a CDD5. So this is a 5.25 inch LF unit. of course, with that HF mounted on the horn throat. We also have a 6-inch and an 8-inch in the range, and of course, as we get larger in diaphragm size, we're getting an extended LF response, and also getting a little bit more SPL as we move up the range as well. So equally, we have a 10, 12, and 15 in this passive range. You can see these the 12-inch and the 15-inch renders of the cabinets there look slightly different. We're actually going to move to a wooden cabinet formation in the new year, just to try and keep up with demand of this series, really. So we should be able to produce a lot more of these and much higher volumes in the new year. To accompany this passive series, we have a huge range of subwoofers designed to fit in any application. Our SX1110 there and our SX210, specifically designed to fit into banquet seating. So if you're in a booth and a bar, it should be able to fit really easily under that seating into a very discrete deployment of a very powerful, for a very small footprint, subwoofer there, going all the way down to 50 hertz for a single 10-inch driver. It's very impressive. Moving up, of course, we have the double 10 and a single 12 there, getting higher in SPL, of course, and slightly lower in frequency range as these drivers increase in size. Double 12, moving up to our brand new SXC 115. So that is a cardioid 15 Biamp subwoofer, giving us a cardioid pattern straight out the box, of course, with one of our presets. Our single 18-inch there, which is also a tall grade subwoofer with an M20 pole mount on the top of it. Our SXC 118, so that's a Biamp single 18 with a rear facing, I think that's a typo actually, I think that is actually a rear facing 14-inch driver. This is again our Biamp cardioid subwoofer, the larger version of the 15. This can give us up to 21 dB rejection 1 meter behind the subwoofer. So if you've got noise conscientious bar owners or people on stage who don't want to hear that bass or LF spill kind of coming back over, this is a fantastic option to keep that LF where you want it and not where you don't want it. Of course, we have our double 18-inch there, our SX218, giving us a frequency response all the way down to 35 hertz and a pretty high SPL of 144 dB peak there. So there's a range, there's a subwoofer for every application in that series. Additionally, with our CDD installation range, there are different variations. So we have a weatherized variant in the 5 and 6 that also includes a built-in transformer, and we also have marine grade specification products for really extreme environments. So a weatherized CDD, it consists of a zinc-plated weather-resistant grille. We then have a layer of Declon foam, a secondary grille assembly, again, sort of hydrophobic mesh, which stops this water ingress. And then we also have a cone treated with a hydrophobic liquid, which basically stops that water ingress at the actual face of the driver. As I said, the smaller versions come with transformers for 100 or 70 volt lines. We will also have a CDD 8, 10 and 12 transformer variant available in the new year as well. And all of the standard mounting hardware is weatherized as standard. So you can deploy that in an outside but sheltered spot. Going into more extreme conditions, we have our CDD Marine, where all of the metal parts are replaced with stainless steel 316. And again, all of this hydrophobic treatment to the individual drivers and to the Declon as well. This is, of course, all UV treated. All of the metal components, which cannot be stainless steel, are encased in some kind of a plastic to stop any kind of corrosion or any exposure to the elements. And you can literally pressure wash these loudspeakers directly into the grill, and they will absolutely stand up to that and keep performing as you would expect. So moving on to the active loudspeakers, we have an 8, a 12, and a 15. Of course, as they get bigger, you get a little bit more LF and a little bit more power as you move up in the range. So all the way up to 55 hertz to 20 kilohertz and 132 dB peak there for the CDD Live 15. To pair with those active loudspeakers, we have the SXP range, which at the moment consists of a single 18 and a double 18. Again, all with the DSP and amplification built into the back panel of these cabinets. So that is the CDD installation range and the CDD Live portable range, all of the models in the series. So have a quick look at some hardware. Installation series has all of the hardware you'd imagine. We have yokes, we have brackets, eye bolts, ceiling brackets, everything you would expect to deploy these loudspeakers in any kind of configuration you might need. We also have some IP kits there, which are effectively just some cable glands to keep the terminations at the back nice and weather resistant. The marine grade products, of course, come with cable glands to keep those terminations completely watertight as well. The CDD Live hardware, we have wall brackets. It's actually the same deployment for the larger models of the passive range. You can also use eye bolts. We have yokes, and of course we have universal brackets that you can see can be deployed in any orientation. So that's landscape or portrait, and they can be flown or they can be supported by pole mount adapters as well. We also have rain cowl covers, which sort of just give a little bit more protection to the back of the unit if you are going to use this outdoors frequently. And we also have transit covers if required. Okay, just going to look at some pretty basic sort of system configurations. So, of course, with a range of loudspeakers that covers this many different sizes, you can kind of configure a system to be exactly bespoke to what you require in terms of performance. So if you need that cardioid subwoofer because you don't want the LF to spill next door, you have a glass wall that's causing some issues, of course, an SXC 118 or an SXC 115 might be a good partner for the LF extension. Equally, with a CDD5 all the way up to a CDD15, there's a big range of what you're trying to achieve with the system there. Is it just some background music, or is this for a club installation where you need some really high SPL, high energy music? Allowing configurations with a mix of any of these different loudspeakers is going to give you exactly the performance you want. The smaller loudspeakers, the CDD5 and the CDD15, and of course, as I said, next year, the 8, 10, and 12 will come, or at current do come, with 100 volt line or 70 volt line transformers. For those of you who aren't particularly aware of 100 volt line systems, this is done generally when loudspeakers are kept far away from their amplifiers. So if you have really long cable runs, this can be really, really inefficient because you're dropping a lot of your energy simply through resistance of the cable. If we pump 100 volts through this system, then this drop off is relatively more efficient, and therefore we get the energy at the loudspeaker as we want, and we step it down with a transformer in the cabinet rather than having that really high energy just blasting out of each loudspeaker. So you can think of this much like the energy pylons that carry the national grid around the UK or any other country. We have really, really high voltages because it's much more efficient to send energy long distances through cable this way. And then it obviously steps down in a transformer at your local location at the end of your street or in your house. And that gives you the kind of power that you want locally, because this is the efficient way to do that. So all of our CDD 5 and 6, and of course our Adorns, the A40 and the A55, have their transformer taps there. So we, depending on which model you're looking at, all the way from 5 to 7.5 or even 30 watts at 100 volt line. So what do we mean by tapping? Basically, this is changing the impedance of the loudspeaker which basically dictates how much power you are allowing that loudspeaker to receive. So if we send 100-volt lines, we send 100 volts down the line, it's going to hit every single loudspeaker at the same amount, but we can vary that loudspeaker's impedance or that load, and therefore it's going to receive a different amount of energy depending on the resistance that we have chosen. So you could actually have two loudspeakers on a 100-volt line system. You can tap them at different points, and that's going to give you a different SPL from each of these loudspeakers as you've changed the impedance of that loudspeaker locally rather than actually the level at the amplifier. As standard, these CDD loudspeakers are 8 ohms a box, which means that you can link 4 of them together. Obviously, if we link them in pairs, there'll be 4 ohms. If we link all 4 together, we're going to have a 2 ohm system. Most amplifiers will happily chug along at 2 ohms. Of course, you need to make sure you have enough power, or the channel has enough power for the amount of loudspeakers that you're trying to link together. And of course, with all multiple source systems, time alignment is an important factor to the coherence of the system itself. So we've managed to get rid of this issue with a coaxial loudspeaker, but of course, as soon as you add a subwoofer, we're now introducing another crossover, and therefore we're going to have some difference in arrival time in that crossover band. So the easiest way to kind of deal with this, if you don't have any RTA software, if you don't have any measurement microphones with you, if we play a tone right in the middle of that crossover band, so it's coming out of both loudspeakers. So in this example, we have a subwoofer, it's an SX110 there. Maybe we're going to play, or maybe we're going to cross over the system at about 90 hertz. We can play a 90 hertz sine wave out of the subwoofer and out of the CDD5 there at the same time. Oh. And as this energy comes out and hits our ears, there's going to be a difference in arrival time because we're going to be closer to one of them than the other. Of course, there can be group delay and other factors and latency in this system, which might result in the physical distance not being exactly the same as the actual arrival time. But in this example, we're just going to say there is a difference in arrival time in the subwoofer. The easiest way to then do that is to invert the polarity of the subwoofer signal, and we're just going to delay the signal to the subwoofer until the whole system is as quiet as we can possibly make it. So here we go, delaying the subwoofer. Now the system, or the tone that we can hear in our listening location, is as quiet as we can make it. We can then revert the polarity of the subwoofer back to normal, and this is going to give us the greatest summation possible, and we know that both of these wavefronts are arriving within phase. Now, this is a bit of a finger in the air kind of solution to this. There's RTA software will definitely give you a better or more finite response. Of course, you might use the wrong wrap. You could be at 360 degrees out of phase relative, but this is a good way of getting your system at least summing in the location that you are positioned in. And of course, you can use some kind of common sense in terms of what the relative distance might be different between both these loudspeakers to give you a good idea on what delay you might need to achieve. Of course, we would recommend that you look into this subject in greater detail. Rational Acoustics, for example, have some brilliant webinars online on how to sort of timeline systems and what this alignment in phase really means. And we actually have a low frequency system design webinar available on the website as well at martin-audio.com/training, and that goes into this sort of this concept in a little bit more detail if you are interested. Just to finish off system configurations, of course, we have presets for our entire range. They're on our website. You can download these presets and use them in any DSP, but of course, it makes a lot of sense to stick with the Martin Audio ecosystem if you can, so that you have kind of global control of the wider system that you have available to you. Of course, CDD Live presets are accessible from the rear. There are 4 presets on board. 4 range high pass, one is a monitor wedge, and of course the fourth one is customizable, which you can then recall when needed. So a little bit on amplification and DSP. So you need DSP, of course you do, for not just presets, but for room tuning, for time alignment, and for just generally setting up a coherent system so that, you know, all the speakers disappear and all you hear is audio. So you're going to have some kind of DSP to get this really working the way you want it to. Depending on your budget, we have our entry level DX 0.5 and our premium sort of tool grade processor, which is our DX4. CDD Live and SXP series, of course, have all of their DSP in the back of the box. So there's our DX 0.5. It's a 2-in 6-out processor. It has all of the DSP that you would expect of any kind of loudspeaker management system, crossover, delay, and dynamics. And our 4-in 8-out DX4 processor. This is our premium tool grade Dante-enabled processor, which of course sits on our Vuenet network for remote control. It has all the benefits of a DSP that you would associate with, you know, a premium tool quality unit, but also benefits from our VX limiting, which effectively models a passive crossover and allows us to limit the LF and the HF units of a device, even if there's a passive crossover network between them. So we can actually limit the LF separately to the HF in a single channel of DSP. The benefits of using a DX4, as I said, sits on the network with all of our other Vuenet enabled products. This would sit equally with an MLA system or with other CDD Live products. You'll be able to control it all from one laptop, from one location. Now, of course, we can recall and store snapshots using this software. We can upload presets. Just generally have a much more coherent approach to our system control for tours and for festivals. For our installation systems, of course, we have our new range of VIA amplifiers. We have two 2-channel amplifiers and 2 4-channel amplifiers, ranging in power to kind of suit the needs of your client. So all the way from, you know, a single CDD 5 all the way up to having maybe a couple of our SXC 118 subwoofers on these installation amplifiers. CDD Live, as I mentioned, have all of their DSP and Class D amplification in the back of the box. And of course, they can be remotely controlled in Vuenet or just using the presets that are available on the back panel. So moving on to software. This is what I type on here. I'm afraid that should be CDD, but it works the same in both ways. We have all of our CDD GLLs available to download from the website, which can be used in Ease Focus and Ease 4. If you don't have Ease Focus currently, I would highly recommend downloading it. It's a really useful piece of software. We have a completely bespoke training video on our website as well, martin-audio/training on Ease Focus, if you want to learn a little bit more about that. But it's a brilliant acoustic prediction piece of software where we can look at the performance of a system. We can make decisions on time alignment, toe out angles, what kind of height we want. Just a really powerful and useful piece of free software. So I would definitely recommend downloading that. Ease 4 is a brilliant acoustic modeling piece of software. This goes into a lot more detail in terms of room acoustics. You can model STI or like RASTI, for example. But it's not something that everybody has access to. So if you do require a deeper look into system design, you can always just get hold of us at technical@martin-audio.com, and we can assist you with those sort of design questions. But Ease 3, brilliant piece of software for free. Also spits out a system design report, which is great for presenting information to clients. You can overlay maps onto DWGs in there. You can get frequency responses, time response, impulse response. There's a whole host of information you can do there to kind of upsell your system designs and compare our products with competitors. As I said, we've got a Dawn series in there. We've got CDD, Blackline X, Blackline X powered, XD series, and all of our subwoofers as well. So from a point source point of view, Ease Focus is a brilliant piece of software for system design. And of course, Vuenet is our proprietary control software for all of our Ethernet enabled products. So whether that be our MLA line arrays, our wavefront precision systems with our Icon amplifiers, or our DX4s, or our CDD live systems, all of this can be controlled remotely simultaneously from our Vuenet control platform. Of course, you can manage presets, we can manage ganging, we can monitor a system's performance, and of course you can control EQ and the dynamics of the system. Both CDD Live and SXP devices can be viewed together, so we can see them there on the right. Zone allocation is a really quick way to gang products together, because here we have a pair of CDD12s to the left, maybe a pair of CDD12s to the right, and of course our subwoofers. We have independent zoning for the subwoofers and the CDD Live, simply because, of course, the parameters are, as standard, slightly different. You wouldn't want to be ganging low passes, for example, but the EQ can be really quickly set for inputs and outputs, and ganged inputs or outputs, depending on what you're trying to achieve. All the input metering is available, so you can really quickly see when something's clipping. And again, in the master overview of the software, you'll be able to quickly locate this if you had any issues as well. And of course, or very importantly, you can ID all of our systems via the LED on the front panel, and you can actually turn these on or off if, for example, you were doing a demonstration to indicate which loudspeaker you are looking at or which loudspeaker you are working on. This can also be done with a chase function, as you can see on the play or skip buttons there, where you can just move very quickly through the system to make sure that you have all of your connected products online where you think they are physically and in the software at the same time. So we're just going to finish off with a couple application examples. This is a brilliant example of using CDD with a much larger system to kind of keep that Martin Audio sound throughout the venue. This is the Cathedral Affair in San Jose in California. We have 2 hangs of 6 WPC here, and they're accompanied by some outfills and some CDD5 lip fill and CDD12 under balcony fills. It's really important to remember as well that front fills, I think I would always put front fills in any design I did, because it brings down the acoustic image of the system. So it's not necessarily about coverage, but it's about delaying those front fills to a certain extent where you can kind of get the Hass effect to start working, and that really pulls down the acoustic image of the performance. So when you're sat in the front row, you're not thinking that the singer, although they're stood in front of you, sounds like they're coming from above your head. If you get these front fills time aligned correctly, you can really pull that image down, giving you a much more natural environment. But as we can see here, simply due to the design of the venue and the restrictions or where you can fly the arrays, normally in a lot of these churches, as you can see in this model, there's a lot of screens that you need to be aware of and sight lines. So we need to make sure that these under balconies, of course, in this situation, are creating an acoustic shadow. We need to get that filled in with some under balcony fills and some front fills. So introducing some of these CDD12s, you can see that we really resolve that under balcony problem. We're really tightening up that broadband frequency response there. And this is really sort of lent to a CDD dispersion, simply because in the near field, we've got that 110-degree coverage. That's going to give us a really wide, even response in the near field, but the narrowing of the horizontal coverage as we move up the vertical axis of the loudspeaker means that we get a little bit more throw, a little bit more concentration of energy. And that's just going to give us a little bit more firepower versus a standard biaxial loudspeaker. CD Marine, we've had this deployed in many locations, but in this example, the Scarlet Lady, which is one of Virgin Cruises' newest cruise liners to kind of go out on the ocean. As you can see here, we have some WPS joined by some CDD 12 loudspeakers that are working as infill, and underneath that top deck kind of layer there's actually a whole bunch of CDD 8s going around the outside. But these are exposed to some really extreme conditions. They're out at sea for years at a time. These can be pressure washed, as I said, to keep up with the maintenance, but the salt water is really damaging for loudspeakers, and the corrosion is really quite deadly to any kind of electronics exposed to it. But these loudspeakers can really stand the test of time in these extreme conditions. Now, all the way down the flanks of this boat, there are just an absolute sea of CDD6s, and due to that really wide near field coverage and the narrowing of the far field, means that we don't have to use as many loudspeakers as you would in a standard system. So that's managed to cut down the costs for the end client, and it also increases the kind of the quality of the audio that we can provide. And again, being marine grade, and any other product that you put in this sort of situation that isn't up to the same specifications is going to suffer from corrosion pretty quickly, within a matter of weeks or months, I would expect. Another brilliant thing about CDD is that you can get it in RAW color. And of course, this is a really good example in that Cochrane Chapel again in the USA of how discrete CDD can be when we have RAW matched it to the surrounding environment. So obviously this is architecturally quite a sensitive historic building, and the CDD are very discreet in this system, but of course offering really good quality of audio and intelligibility, which is important in a house of worship, but is very discreet, so they're not particularly off-putting to the congregation. Another system here, this is Le Poisson Rouge again in the US. In this system, we have a bunch of, I think it's WPM or WPS, accompanied with a whole host of CDD live loudspeakers dotted around the venue. And this was sort of specifically chosen for the onboard DSP and the Dante enables units. This allows us to have really flexible routing without any kind of hardwiring. We can soft patch absolutely everything, so we have any signal we want going to any specific location. Specifically in the Poisson Rouge, there's a lot of different zoning going on, and this is only achievable because of our Dante configuration and the Dante network within that. It also means that in each loudspeaker location, we only need an Ethernet and power, and we are kind of good to go. So this is why CDD really kind of fulfilled everything the client required. So in summary, very discrete cabinet. Often we need fewer loudspeakers to give us better than average coverage. So obviously that's a win-win. System integrators are happy because we get this better coverage off and on axis, as I mentioned, and we can pair, of course, them further apart. It means that we can win more tenders. We can reduce the budgets quite often using these loudspeakers. The quality really is like absolutely fantastic with the CDD range, and of course all of the awards that we have won only prove this. And of course the benefits of having that RAW color, that there's a model for every kind of SPL and frequency range requirement for every application and for every environment, being that 100-volt line systems, being in an outdoor kind of part in a beer garden, or even being on the top deck of an ocean going vessel. We have the loudspeaker in this series to fulfill those requirements.